חג טוב, חנוכה הוא חג טוב, סביבו סוף סוף סוף, סוף נסוף כה וכה, נס גדול היה פה, נס גדול היה פה, סוף נסוף כה וכה.
I am Rabbi Miriam Berger from Finchley Reformed Synagogue, and I wanted to tell you about the Chanukiot that I use because it transformed my understanding of the festival of Hanukkah. Having grown up in Britain, Hanukkah as a child was always the festival that we had as British Jews that meant that we didn't need Christmas. And it was our own festival of light, and it was joyous and celebratory and a bit of fun. And in the winter of 2000, I was studying for the year in Israel. I had finished university. I knew that I was going to hopefully be beginning at the Liobet College the following year. And I had this opportunity to study at HUC. I'd arrived in the summer and had the freedom of being an adult, not on a tour, not with family, but my own experience of being in Israel on my own. I'd found myself in the old city that summer and got chatting to a boy whose dad owned a restaurant in the Arab quarter of the old city. He had taken me for the most amazing exploration around the old city, showing me an Israel from his perspective. It had been so illuminating. In that September, the Second Intifada began, and I felt Israel changed. I experienced what it felt like to live in Israel in a way that we'd been taught about, I'd been shown, but I'd never experienced for myself. Hanukkah came around, and the rules of what we could do as students were different. We could no longer go into the old city. It wasn't safe for us. We even, in a bizarre sense, sat on the roof of one of my friend's apartment blocks and watched tracer bullets fall into Gilo. It was the most strange experience of place, seeing danger but knowing and feeling that we had to keep pretending to ourselves that it was afar, even when we heard the explosion at Machane Yehuda all too close. And so when I went to choose a Chanukiah to light that year, I realized that my perception of Hanukkah had changed. It was all about place. It was a story of Zionism. It was a story that we were living in that moment, a sense of a joy and a connection to a very physical place, and yet the will to have strength, to bring light into the darkness, and to create peace. And so my Chanukiah, made of Jerusalem stone, with the jugs of oil perched on the walls of the old temple, allowed me to take back that message as I lit my candles in future years back in Britain, to remind myself that my relationship with Israel is not something that I can take for granted, that its very existence is not something that we can take for granted, and that hope of both the experience of having strength, the Zionist will, and yet also a real message of peace and light in dark times. So as we light the Hanukkah candles on this fourth night of Hanukkah, we ask for this year and all subsequent years to be a year of peace. We light the shamash and sing the blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem ובזמן הזה. הנרות הללו אנו מדליקים, הנרות הללו אנו מדליקים, על הניסים ועל התשועות ועל הנפלאות ועל הנחמות שעשית לאבותינו, שעשית לאבותינו בימים ההם, בימים ההם, בימים ההם ובזמן הזה. And the words of Maltzur with just a slight tweak, which allows us to take the theme of Maltzur not into one of simply strength to slaughter our foes, but one that allows us to hope for a time of peace where there is no animosity. Maltzur Yeshuati L'chana L'shabeach Tikon Beit Tefilati V'sham Toda Nezabeach Le'et Tashbit Matbeach Mitzaham Nabeach Azegmo Bashir Mizmo Chanukiot Mizbeach Azegmo Bashir Mizmo Chanukiot Mizbeach. Chanukah Sameach, everybody.
סביבון, סוף סוף סוף, חנוכה הוא חג טוב, חנוכה הוא חג טוב, סביבון, סוף סוף סוף, סוף נסוף כה וכה, נס גדול היה פה, נס גדול